Now we're going to take a look at the CI build and push pipeline. This is the continuous integration portion of our workflow. If you want to take a look at the top left folder under workflows, you'll see that we have two different YAMLs here. In the previous video, we covered the security scan YAML, and this one will be covering the CI build. Now, if we take a look here at the repo, this is basically a workflow that ensures that every code change is validated and containerized before being deployed to our cluster. If we scroll down a little bit, we can see the workflow at a high level. So this covers the moment from when the code is pushed initially through the automated build and creation of the image, and eventually the handoff to the CD repo. So the first step here is the developer pushing the code change to the main branch. This will trigger the CI runner to wake up and kick off the build. The runner is basically a fresh, isolated environment created specifically to handle the application source code. Then the latest application code is going to be checked out by the runner. It will be configured using a Docker builder and then authenticated with a Docker hub. So this establishes everything that the build needs before the image gets constructed. Next, you're going to generate a unique hash that will be tied to a specific commit. This ensures that every single image is traceable and it's able to go through an audit because we'll know exactly which version of the code is running at any given time. And then from that image, we'll be able to create a test container, a live running test container that we can check for endpoint health. And then next, we're going to go ahead and check out the GitOps code into a second runner. So the personal access token here is used to connect this continuous integration repo with our continuous deployment repo. In our continuous deployment repo, we have our Kubernetes manifest files. And in those files, we're going to establish a new image as a result of this process. And those two repos are linked through a personal access token. Then next, we're going to update the manifest files with our new image and hash, and then that will be committed and pushed using a GitOps process to the CD repo, and that action triggers Argo CD. Argo CD is located within the manifest files of our associated CD repo. So that's the process at a high level. Then we can actually take a look at the code in the next section. All right, next we're going to walk through the actual pipeline stage process, starting with the workflow initialization. Now, this stage is designed to monitor the repo for any code changes based on the file path. So we explicitly watch for changes to the Docker file. Also, we watch for changes in the application code and all of its subdirectories. So any changes there will initiate the pipeline. Now, I have some code that's commented out. This is in reference to a multi-branch strategy. Typically, a pipeline like this will not push directly to main, but perhaps to a different branch. So if you'd like to expand upon this or add a different branch, you can do so with this code. So this is optional, but it won't be used in our demonstration. Next, we're going to establish some environmental variables. As I mentioned before, this particular repo has a complementary CD repo, and these environmental variables are going to reference the image name, the path to that CD repo, and the manifest files within the repo. So these files are basically going to establish the manifest path to allow the shell scripts later in the pipeline to stay clean and readable. Okay, so that's very helpful. Next, we're going to look at the job setup. So basically, the runtime environment needs to be established for secure communication within the container registry. This is necessary so that the runners have the build tools and write permissions for Docker Hub. So as you can see here at the bottom, we have username and password. These credentials are kept as secrets, and these will allow the image to be placed into Docker Hub via runner. Okay, next we're going to extract the metadata. Okay, so as I mentioned before, each unique image will have its own hash, and down here where it says prefix SHA, that's actually going to be the tag that gets assigned to the image. And in common format for Docker images, you have a username / image name, and then the hashtag will be tagged onto that. So it's a great way to identify a specific hash or a specific image. Next, we go to the build and push phase. Okay, now this phase is especially important because it prevents the builder from ingesting unnecessary root level files. It keeps the build process efficient. So as you know, Docker is built upon layers, and if current layers exist in a Docker build, it won't rebuild them. It'll simply use the ones that are currently in place via caching. So we're basically ensuring that a caching process is being used and it doesn't slow down our build process. Okay. Next, the smoke test. So basically what we're going to do here is run a test container of our image, and we're going to make sure that we can reach a healthy endpoint. And if we don't, we're going to exit out using exit code 1 to stop the container. So this is basically an endpoint health test that makes sure that our image and build are valid before continuing. And next, we're going to update the repo with the new image. So in this process, what we're going to do here is make sure we check out the code via GitHub Actions. This is actually going to initiate a second runner. And what it'll do is it'll access our CD repo, which is right here. And it's going to access it via the path and the token, personal access token that we provided in our secrets. Okay, this is one of the last steps of the process because it has to basically hand over the new image to the manifest files in the CD directory. So that's basically what we're doing here. And this second to last step right here is going to update the tag. So in our previous stage, we determined a unique tag, and that's what's going to be tagged onto the image name. Okay, and then in the last stage right here, the commit and push changes phase will basically update the newly acquired image to the repository, and it will initiate a GitHub Actions step in the deployment process. So the whole purpose of this CI pipeline is to create a new image, push it to the registry, then from the registry, it's going to be used in the manifest files in the CD repo. The CD repo changes will be recognized by Argo CD, and that will set us up for the continuous deployment phase. Okay, so we will watch this process in action in the next video, so stay tuned. All right, in our last video, we walked through the CI build and push pipeline. We went through and described what happens at each of the individual stages in the workflow. And now what we're going to do is we're going to trigger the application code build by making a small change to our application code. So I'm just going to go to our main.go file in our applications directory, and we're just going to make a small change to the application code here at the top. And we're going to make sure that we save the change, and we're going to do a git add command here, and we're going to make sure that we prepare this for staging. Next, we're going to run a git commit, and we're going to call this build process test. Perfect. And then we're going to go ahead and run git push origin main. All right. Now I'm going to go back to my GitHub file and watch the build process take place. Okay, so now that we've made our source code changes and pushed them to GitHub, we have initialized the CI process, and we're going to go ahead and go to GitHub Actions and take a look at the workflow. And if we go here, build and push, we can take a look at each stage here. Now initially the process starts by grabbing the source code. So we move the source code from the repo to a runner, and then we're going to set up the Docker build engine using build-x. This is the tool that the runner uses to package the code so it can run anywhere. And then we're going to initialize our credentials so that we can log into Docker Hub. And then the actual hash is going to be created via metadata. So as you can see here, we have Docker tags that are created. So this would be the hash that's created for that image. Then next, this is the main event right here. So we build and push the Docker image. So the runner builds the app, uploads it, and this is the moment when it goes from a file to an actual artifact. Okay, so you can see all of the commands and layers and everything that's needed to build the image. And then if we go down here, this is where we're going to actually run the live test container. So we don't just assume that it works. We actually run a live container and test it out by seeing if we can reach a healthy endpoint. Then next, what we're going to do is go for the push of the Docker image. And after this phase, what we're going to do is transfer the image to our repository and then to our manifest file. Okay, so these are just post-job workflows here. This is really cleaning up the image, cleaning up all the work that we did. And then finally, last, we have complete job. So just a couple things to point out. If we scroll back up to build action, where it is, I just want to show you exactly where that image is created. Okay, perfect. All right, so you see right here where it says metadata action 5. Well, here it's actually producing all the tags that are going to be associated with that image. And the reason why this is important is because this is the same tag that's going to be reflected in Docker Hub. So if we see here, it says ADE6. I'm going to go to Docker Hub, and I'm going to show the exact commit. So if I go to tags, okay, let's see what we got here. Okay, so roughly 9 minutes ago, we have the same exact hash here that we see here. So we know that we successfully got the image into our registry, which is Docker Hub. Okay. All right. Then next, what we're going to do is take a look at GitHub, and we're going to see if we can see those changes reflected in my repo. Okay. So I'm going to go back to my Docker Hub page, and I'm going to look at my repos, and we're going to go to the CD repo. Okay. So if I look here, it says 9 minutes ago, go to manifests, and my deployment will have my image there. And if I scroll down right here, this is the very same hash that we produced from our build process. So this tells me that we were successfully able to create the image, push it to the registry, and then that image was pulled from the registry and placed into our Kubernetes manifest. So in the next video, we're going to walk through the CD portion of this workflow and show you how Argo CD recognizes the change and then applies it to the application that's going to be deployed on our Kubernetes cluster. Okay, so next video coming up soon.